Hello, I'm Leslie Anderson. I'm the Director of Collections, Exhibitions, and Programs at the National Nordic Museum in Seattle. And I want to welcome you to the Work of Collaboration, a virtual panel that brings together artists Barbara Earl Thomas, Derrick Adams, Janelle Iglesias, and Lisa Iglesias. This program itself is the product of collaboration between the National Nordic Museum and the Henry Art Gallery of the University of Washington, planned to coincide with the exhibitions Mother Tongues, Bodhild and Las Hermanas Iglesias, which opened on November 4th and closes at the end of January, and Packaged Black, Derrick Adams and Barbara Earl Thomas, which opened on October 2nd, 2021, and closes on May 1st. Packaged Black, Derrick Adams and Barbara Earl Thomas is organized by Nina Boziknik, curator, and Shamim Momin, director of curatorial affairs at the Henry Art Gallery. Lead support is provided by the Andy Warhol Foundation for the Visual Arts, and the exhibition is also made possible by the generous support of Virginia and Bagley Wright. I've had the great pleasure of curating Mother Tongues, Bodhild and Las Hermanas Iglesias for the National Nordic Museum. The museum wishes to thank the following sponsors for making this exhibition possible: the Washington State Arts Commission, D.V. and Ida J. McEachran Charitable Trust, Arts Fund, the Seattle Office of Arts and Culture, and For Culture. Before I introduce the panel's moderator, I wish to note that our esteemed panelists are located in different regions of the United States. I'm joining you from Seattle. The National Nordic Museum acknowledges that we work on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish peoples, whose ancestors resided here since time immemorial. The National Nordic Museum acknowledges the impact of colonialism on Indigenous peoples. We celebrate the continuity of Indigenous communities in the Nordic countries and North America through our exhibitions, programs, and collections, and we cultivate respectful relationships with each other through partnerships. Now I have the great pleasure of introducing our moderator. The moderator for this program is Chieko Phillips, who serves as the Heritage Program Director at For Culture, where she supports organizations and practitioners who preserve, interpret, and share the history, heritage, and material culture of King County. Phillips started her career at the Northwest African American Museum, where the value and practice of community co-creation was permanently ingrained in her professional DNA. She has also worked with exhibitions and programming at the United Negro College Fund and Photographic Center Northwest, and she served briefly as Executive Director of Black Past, an online resource for African American and global African history. She completed her BA in History from Davidson College and her MA in Museology from the University of Washington. Chieko, thank you for guiding this conversation. I turn the microphone over to you.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Leslie. I'm so happy to be here today. And thank you to all of you in the Zoom room for choosing to spend your evening here with Derrick, Barbara, Lisa, and Janelle and myself as we talk about the art of collaboration or the collaboration of art, depending on how you see it. I am going to get us started today with introducing our wonderful panel of creatives. And I'll start off with Barbara. Barbara, you came off screen first, so here you go. So Barbara Earl Thomas earned her BA and MFA from the University of Washington. She has been a recipient of the Howard S. Wright Award, the Strainer Genius Award, the Mayor's Arts Award, and the Hauberg Fellowship. Thomas has completed residencies at the Pilchuck School of Glass in Stanwood, the Museum of Glass, Tacoma, and Goathead Press, Tieton. She has held solo exhibitions at Evansville Museum of Arts and Science, Seattle Art Museum, Bainbridge Island Museum, Art Museum, and the Whatcom Museum of History, Arts, and Science. History and Art in Bellingham. Thomas has participated in numerous group exhibitions, including at the Bellevue Arts Museum, the Northwest African American Museum, which is where we met, in Seattle, the Savannah College of Art and Design Museum, which is where I met Derrick. And her work has been included in the public collections of the Portland Art Museum and the Seattle Art Museum, as well as the Tacoma Art Museum. Want to say hi, Barbara?
Hello, that's enough. Talk to you later.
All right. Next on my list, I have Derrick Adams, who earned his BFA from Pratt Institute, and MFA from Columbia University. He has completed residencies at the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture, Madison, and the Sharp Lorenta Studio Program, New York. He is a recipient of a Gordon Parks Foundation Fellowship, a Joyce Alexander Wien Artist Prize, and Louis Comfort Tiffany Foundation Award. Adams has held solo exhibitions at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver, Museum of Fine Arts, St. Petersburg, the Museum of Arts and Design, New York, along with other institutions. He has participated in numerous group exhibitions as well, including at the Peabody Essex Museum, Salem, National Underground Railroad Freedom Center in Cincinnati, which is on my list of places I want to visit, the Studio Museum in Harlem, New York, and his works are held in notable collections of the Birmingham Museum of Art, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York, Whitney Museum of American Art in New York, and he recently established the Last Resort, an artist program and residency in Baltimore. You want to say a quick hello, Derrick, and where you're zooming in from?
Hello, everyone. So happy to be here in conversation with these esteemed panelists and moderators. I'm dialing in from Baltimore. I'm actually at the Last Resort.
You're in Baltimore. Oh, I didn't know that.
I just got here tonight just to check on things. You know, we're developing all the things on the property. So I kind of come here, you know, when I can, just to say hello to my family, who I love so much. And, you know, just to see what's going on in the town, you know. Baltimore is a great place.
Great, thank you. All right, next we have Janelle Iglesias, who received her MFA in sculpture from Virginia Commonwealth University and is an assistant professor of studio art at the University of California, San Diego. She works on site-responsive projects in a variety of contexts. Her work is invested in the metaphors, history, and agency of objects, materials, and their physical language in space. An alumna of the Skowhegan School of Painting and Sculpture as well. Her work has been supported by the Joan Mitchell Foundation, the Pollock Krasner Foundation, and the Jerome Foundation, through which Janelle also conducted research on brower birds in the rainforest of West Papua, which is a sentence I never thought I would say. Bodhild and Lisa and Janelle's collective projects have been featured at the Textile Arts Center, Ortega y Gasset, BRIC, and the New Mexico State Art Museum, among others. Hi, Janelle.
Hi, everybody. It's really wonderful to be here and join you.
Where are you zooming in from?
I am zooming in from San Diego, California, the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay people. So I'm representing the West Coast with Barbara, and Lisa's also East Coasting it with Derrick. So we have some nice symmetry going on.
Nice. Thank you. And Lisa Iglesias is our fourth panelist for the evening. Hello. Lisa received her MFA from the University of Florida and is currently an assistant professor in the Department of Art at Mount Holyoke College. Her work explores expansive histories and potentials of drawing and painting, taking into consideration the translation of patterns, images, and gestures across materials, and is deeply affected by her role as a mother. Her work has been supported by NYFA and residencies at the Provincetown Fine Arts Work Center and the Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts, among others. Elisa divides her time between Western Mass and Queens, and also both her Lisa and Janelle's collective projects have been featured at the Textile Arts Center, Ortega y Gasset, BRIC, and New Mexico State Art Museum, among others. Hi, Janelle. Excuse me. Hi, Lisa.
It happens all the time. No worries. Hi, I'm zooming in from South Hadley, Massachusetts, and it's really good to be here with all of you.
Thank you. And Barbara, I didn't ask you where you're zooming in from. You want to chime in?
Columbia City in Seattle.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm right down the street in South Beacon. So awesome in Seattle. All right, so that was 4 lifetimes of work summarized in like, what, I don't know, 7 minutes. Amazing. I'm so honored to be speaking with you all here today about collaboration. So to kick us off, it would be great if you all could get our audience grounded in the great exhibitions that you all have been involved in, Mother Tongues and Packaged Black. Would you all be able to get us started with sharing how collaboration manifested in your shows? This could be through process, product, or your artist philosophy. And who would like to go first?
Come on, Derrick, do it.
I'll start it out. Well,
okay, let me know if you want me to throw up some images while you're talking.
Not yet, but just starting with the idea of collaboration. For me, collaborations always have to happen more organically, in a way that each person can have a voice, but also, understanding what collaboration means. Like, it doesn't always have to be 50-50 or like, as you mature as an artist, you realize like what collaboration is. If you're going to work with a musician on a piece and you don't know how to play an instrument, that collaboration is that musician playing an instrument and what that means. With Barbara and I think our collaboration started with these conversations about family and practice and history and, and things that we related to became part of the intrigue of the possibilities of collaborating with each other and understanding what our values were and our material interests were, and things that I felt kind of helped to promote the direction of what you see at the Henry, because we start off with just conversations. We didn't necessarily have an intention to collaborate per se in the beginning of our knowing each other, but I felt, and I think we both felt, that after knowing each other and being in each other's space for some time, we knew that we had to have some public display of our ongoing conversations and interests in a visual art forum. I felt like this exhibition is kind of like the evidence of our conversations, more than anything. Like, it's collaborative, but it's really more like people are seeing what we talk about when we're hanging out. People see like what our interests are. I think this exhibition looks more like like you're digging up in our head or something, and you're walking around our brain in the space. Not everything we think about, but that's a part of what we think about. And not that this is everything that makes up who we are as artists, as people, but this is something that we can spend hours and days and years talking about, among other things. And I think this collaboration came out of the kinship of being on each other's side and understanding perspectives based on our cultural identity and our histories that are somehow linked all through East or West Coast. Is that okay, Barbara?
That's perfect. I like that kinship, the kinship of being on each other's side. That's exactly putting into words how I feel. So Matt, you guys.
So yeah, Lisa and I have a different, I think in terms of kinship, because we're sisters. And so, we've have this, we feel like we've been collaborators since birth, basically, because we're about a year and a few months apart. But we came to art making through different tracks, and we started our collaborative practice in graduate school by sending things back and forth in the mail. And so after graduate school, we moved back to New York City, and it was sort of a place where we thought it would be amazing to grow and learn as artists, but much more so because that's where our family and our communities were from as well. And so our individual practices kind of grew alongside this other thing, this collaborative practice simultaneously, which we named Las Hermanas Iglesias to kind of privilege this idea of being in relation to one another and kind of drawing from our identities, drawing from histories of feminism, and really thinking about ourselves as a team. And so we've been working together for about 15 years now on bodies of work that have radically changed. Like, it just, like Derrick was saying, like, we think of collaboration as this really plastic material that's always morphing, and is super flexible depending upon what kind of project it is. And so we've done projects that are, both of our hands are in every, part of everything. And we've done projects where we pass things back and forth and it's really dialogic. We've done projects where we kind of mash up what's happening in our separate studios and more of in our individual works, but we kind of finish each other's sentences or put them side by side. And then our practice also has evolved to sometimes collaborate with other communities or other family members. And we started collaborating with our mom pretty early on, like sporadically. We would ask her to do things like create costumes that we would perform or take photographs in. She knit us these kind of amazing nude suits where we did these nude photographs, but they're like knit suits with nipples and hair and all kinds of details of our bodies. And she would also participate in performances, sometimes as an umpire. She was really generous and kind of down to be part of things when we asked her. And then when our father passed away in 2014, she really took up knitting again. And at that point, as also just this kind of self-care and, as something that felt really good. And, she had retired and knitting had become part of more of a regular practice for her. And at that point, we also, Lisa and I were really wanting to actively kind of instigate some more projects with her. And so we started, this kind of this body of textile work that initially started with the seed of this idea of translation. Our mom was the only one in our family. Our mom was born in Norway. Our father was born in the Dominican Republic, and they met in an Irish pub in Queens. And she was the only one in our family who spoke Norwegian and Spanish and English fluently, and was often like the translator in our family between family members at extended family gatherings and such. And so we started to think about this idea of translating from one medium to another. And so a lot of our the early seeds of that collaboration were this kind of seeing what happened when a mark on paper turned into a work a mark or an action, a gesture through textile works. And then we started doing residencies all together and kind of pushing this idea of like, well, let's try this. Let's break one of the rules we've established. Let's try something new. Let's respond to work and keep pushing it further and further. And that is the work that's now in this exhibition, Mother Tongues, that's at the Nordic Museum, which is a kind of culmination of work that probably for the past about 6 years we've been working on and off. And we've also started working a little bit with Lisa's son, Bowie, who's 9 years old. And so he also has done an audio tour for the exhibition. You can kind of tune in on your phone via a QR code, and he will walk you through the exhibition through his eyes. And he also produced these amazing drawings of works in the show that we translated from these line drawings into kind of a large format poster that turns into a coloring book for kids. So the show is very intergenerational in terms of kind of drawing from different family members in that way.
Well, I think I'm going to pick up, the threads that you guys have pulled together, because of course you guys are related by blood in that way. But I think that what I dipped into with Derrick, our first conversations were all about his family. His mom, the sisters, and the parties the sisters would have. And all of a sudden it was like a movie came on, and I was like there, and I understood everything, and I insinuated myself into the verbal dreaming that Derrick is so apt to do. And actually, I can see how people have memories that weren't really a part of their lives, because stories are so kinetic and so magic. And so I think I actually linked right into that. And so I think that in my way, I was very intentional. I was very intentional about the spark of sort of intuition that I felt when I was talking with Derrick. And so I really didn't have an idea that I was going to do something with him. I just had an idea that I wanted him to come into my space, into the Northwest, and do whatever he does, just do it here. And then the idea that we would do something together arose from that. And actually, and Chieko was saying that she met Derrick when we were together in Savannah. And of course, I've also worked with Chieko, because she's been one of my studio assistants sort of for a really long time. So it's kind of this, this world we go in and out of. And I guess beyond, this sort of the plastic idea, I'm interested in human experience, and I'm interested in what it feels like to be a human trying to communicate outside of my body, to say, hey, I'm in here and this is what I'm feeling and this is what I see in you. And I see so much in Derrick and in Chieko that I'm always just trying to get at it. I'm just pulling it together. So the work, and I also saw how Derrick did performance. And I feel like I do a certain kind of performance, but Derrick's performances are these serious sort of large, what do you call those? Tableau vivant. And so I wanted him to come out here and make us and put us into one of his vivant situations. And he did. I'm done.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you.
Just to touch a bit on what Barbara and Derrick were saying about like kinship and conversations, I think that collaboration is so much about that, like making visible these relationships that are either biological or run along the lines of chosen love, or but that those visible conversations are what it sounds like is what a lot of this work is all about.
And when I saw your show, when I went to the show and I was able to see the knitting and the lines, the threads literally going from one piece to the other and back and forth. I guess I'm probably the one here that's seen both shows.
Yeah.
So I was able to see kind of that very, both of your touches in the work, making them physically link. And I think when I think about what I did was like in the show at the Henry, I literally did an image of Derrick and put it in the show because I thought, I was just grabbing everything. And I think this is, in a sense, it's a metaphor for the world we're in right now, and the world that we've always been in, but especially now when I feel like people are so separated by the plague, separated by the political noise, separated by all of the ways we are very much boxing ourselves inside of our identity. And sort of, I think we give each other maybe a possibility of showing people what it means to reach out, just reach out. And that I felt that I was going to be supported and enlarged by my reaching out to Derrick, and not that I was going to be erased or, pressed down, and that we were going to be greater than our two separate parts. And I think that's part of what I think about collaboration, and why collaboration as a sort of a mode of action is important to the world.
Is
that like the beat? That's like the beat mix. Like the beat
poetry.
Mix. Yeah.
Poetry. Wonderful. All right. So I have some questions here. So one of the things that has kind of been brought up, you're talking about threads. So I'm going to take that to a literal space, or a physical space, I suppose. So both of the exhibitions, Mother Tongue and Packaged Black, celebrate and or are inspired by textile designers from an earlier generation. For example, let's see, we have Bodhild's mother, Sophia's mat rugs that are within the exhibition space of Mother Tongues, as well as some pieces by Annie Albers, who is considered the mother of contemporary textile or modern textiles. And then in Packaged Black, Patrick Kelly is the inspiration of Derrick, your mood board series. And then also in Packaged Black, Barbara, the creation of the Cinderella redress, which is a magical floating Tyvek and fabric creation, also enters in fashion design and the use of like textile. Is there something about textile that encourages collaborative art making? Are there certain mediums that seem to work really well, or that you all prefer to work in for your collaborative art making? And could you just talk about that a bit more?
I mean, for me, for the work that's in the show, and when I think about fashion or think about textile as a approach to fashion or a material for fashion or language, a lot of things that are just really attractive to me when it comes to that world, because a lot of times when you talk to fashion designers or people who are inspired by textile, a lot of the inspiration doesn't necessarily always come from textile. A lot of it might come from like memory, or it might come from things where considered discarded materials that were recycled into other materials. Some things are very reflective of the environment. The color palettes used in textiles are reflective of the environment and the materials, natural materials that are in those environments. So they kind of become like this record or archive for kind of cataloging culture. And I think even from Patrick Kelly, who was like more of a contemporary designer, even his philosophy of a lot of the things that he made were based on his influence from his grandmother using materials to accentuate and to to embellish on materials that were torn or disfigured or whatever. They would put buttons on them to kind of cover up holes and things like that. And that's one of the things that he contributed his creative direction from, which really was not necessarily about fashion per se or textile per se, but it was kind of motivated someone who was interested in fashion and textile to really think about it in a very tangible and almost approachable perspective. It wasn't intellectualized. I think I'm doing that, but I think that the origin of it, because I think that he's all those things too, but I want to intellectualize him as an artist, because people don't really think about artists or people who deal with materials like fiber or whatever, depending on what it is, as artists. And sometimes they don't either. People who make those things don't consider themselves artists. But me as an artist, I see art in it, and I see it as something that's really thought out and and planned, and and all those things that are part of it are important. And they're not just intuitive. They're more. I think a lot of times people think of people who are indigenous or people who are from other types of culture doing things that are just based on feeling, but sometimes it's thought goes into things too, and strategy and language and things that people think about, not just us. So I think about fashion in that way, as being like a language, a surface in some way.
Well, I think also the idea that you're taking, I come from, again, I come from a makers, we made things, and we made things out of utility. Something was broken, we had to fix it. So when you fix it, you decorate it, you make it look different, but it was used. The pillowcase, the antimacassar on the back of the couch, and we never just took a fabric and put it there. We always did something to it. And I think that so the idea, and what Derrick's talking about, this whole thing about art forms that are not that are underneath what is, if you take high art, middle art, and low art, you know, in terms of how art history views it, and you are elevating that up and out of whatever, and it still has anything before. If you used it, it was not thought of as wonderful. It needed to not be used. But I think that this idea of moving between what is used and not used, and lifting it up and showing that all the elements that are in the finest art are also there is part of what I think allows the everyman to step through the door and find himself in the work. And I think when people step through the door and they see the knitting and the crocheting, they relate to the fabricness of it. When they step through, like someone was looking at Derrick's mood boards, they said, I'm going to go home and do a mood board. I said, okay. You know, I said, put some zippers in it. And I think that, you know, we're, you know, at this point, we're helping to give people language to talk about something that they already know about, but they don't particularly have words for it.
Yeah, I think that I love what you were saying about what you two were saying about utility, like things that can be utilized, that things can be used and serve different purposes, whether it's in the home or whether it's at work or whatever. And like thinking about value and labor. And because so much of the work that our mom has done and our family members have done are not contextualized within this sort of like this sense of art with a capital A. And I think that textiles and craft traditions like textiles are at this really beautiful, they're poised at this beautiful point to really challenge this constructed hierarchy that is that's entirely false and kind of an illusion. And I think that it's also that textiles, you know, they're so transparent about collaboration. It's like so many of these techniques in textiles, or whether we're talking about work in ceramics or work in glass or work in some of these other sort of like traditionally siloed craft fields, they are transparently collaborative. And I think that that really runs counter to systems like in academia or in the art world that are much more suited towards the individual and like really triumphing this lone person. So textiles as a topic to research or make things out of is this point where you can really kind of chip away and challenge that idea of the lone maker and kind of open the door and be more transparent about like how actually none of that stuff is made by one person. All of this actually has many different hands in the pot.
So I want to ask you both, when you're working together, when something doesn't work, what's happening?
That often happens. That often happens. That's like one of the most interesting spots, right? Because then there's like problem solving and troubleshooting and talking and disagreeing with each other and YouTubing it and kind of like just new ideas coming in, because not working could be like because we're disagreeing about something or because like a technique is not working out the way we thought it would. And I think surprise is a really valuable part of it, right? Like so oftentimes in the studio or whatever, you can kind of get into a role where you can expect the result, but when you're surprised, it's like this gift.
I like that.
Yeah, when things don't work, that's sometimes a real juicy spot.
Lisa and I have been working on these pieces of on paper that we send back and forth in the mail for a long time. And some of them, like, they don't work at all. They get to these places where they're just like, they get work, like they're overworked. But then there's something really interesting that happens when they become resurrected from one of us.
I like the word resurrection. That's sort of religious. I like to bring things back from the dead.
Back, But I think that one of the reasons that we love to collaborate is this idea that we will make something together that we wouldn't have necessarily made on our own, or we're making something in conversation with each other that wouldn't have come out, in our own head and in the studio alone. And so I think when something isn't working, I think we're also we also kind of have to be vulnerable to let go of control and be open to that surprise with each other, and like kind of loosen our grip in a different kind of way than when it's not working in our own studios. and kind of relinquish that control to each other and to the conversation and wherever that conversation is going to go. I love that question. Do you also feel like, can you guys describe also those times when something's, do you find that you're often both on the same page when you feel like something's working really well? Like, do you feel like there's an organic sense of coming together and agreeing on certain things, and also finding similarly that you often recognize the same things when it's not lining up the way you had hoped?
Well, I did a lot of writing, and Derrick is a big idea guy. And so we're writing back and forth, and our and tell me if I'm lying, Derrick. I like to make up stories, and so I would just write these things, and he'd come back. He says, "Well, I like that idea. I like that idea." And of course, we had the big ooey gooey. We had all these things planned with this show. We were gonna have this, fashion show where we're gonna do all these different things, and then boom, COVID, and we had to
Yeah.
think right on the spot. Like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do now? And
also, what was the most valuable part of the conversation that we can still hold on to, and what is at a place we could let go, that we could shape down? Because I felt like it could have gotten bigger. It could have gotten more dense. I think the circumstances.
We were going towards Cecil B. DeMille.
Yeah,
and we had to kind of step back a little bit.
And I think that the circumstances really brought us to a place of really understanding the key elements of what we were trying to communicate and how to get right back to that. And also, with everything happening around us, how it's for us to stay in conversation with each other and not necessarily be too structured, because the idea is that, that we were making work in two different places. And I felt it was, when you collaborate with other people, you always hope that they will cover an area that you missed or something, I think it's what collaboration really is in some way, or strengthen areas that you maybe made a little weak in or something, like you think the collaboration really has to be beneficial in some ways beyond just the idea of working with someone, the idea of sharing the space or sharing the material and having people speak in the way that they speak, and having that somehow be a balance between the two, and how the outcome of that should be sustainable for both artists, but also the viewer should be able to take away something that is not necessarily about what they missed looking at things or what was not strong or not, but just the idea that the collaboration really was very much aware of each other. Where each other move, and the things that people kind of pull away, pick away from the encounter. I think that's what I was just excited about, because when we had to strip everything down, it did change a lot. But we also realized that a lot of things we were thinking about had already been in like things we've been working on, versus starting from scratch. Even though Barbara, she went all out. That show, her installation is just all, is just mind blowing. Some of my work in the show is for the Space Commission, but Barbara made an installation that was a site responsive piece, and she worked hard. Her team, who helps her as studio assistants, it looks like it. You can see the blood in it, in a good way. You can see like it's showing work was put involved. It is so. You can look at it, the detailing of this was not done with a machine. It was done by hand. And when you look at it and look at all of the detailing of it, it's just a lot of work that, to me, kind of cements the show in a way that makes it an experience that's not just about looking at work on the wall, but feeling like you're engulfed in an idea that is physical.
Well, I think it was really great. The thing that I loved too, and Derrick got the new pieces he did had these zippers in them. And one of the things in the dresses that I have, there was this whole idea about whether we were going to just sort of Velcro them together or put zippers in them. And so there are all these zippers, and I'm like, there's something about the zipper that makes the dress or that thing seem like it's ready for the world, because you can put it on and you can zip it up.
Well, they got
There's zippers everywhere.
Remember when before they had button fly? If you can zip in your pants, hopefully they'll stay on. I remember my family. So my family members, women. I don't know. I didn't see guys doing it, but I remember women in my family would lay down on the bed when they were zipping their pants. When it was
Well,
like the
no.
tight jeans era,
Yeah, those jeans that were,
they would lay down on the bed and zip their pants, and then get up.
yeah,
You
then
know,
you're ready. You'll
you
never have to
know,
sit down.
because if you zipping it up, you're all good.
Yeah.
You can keep it all in, you're all good. And I think that for fashion, it has like these metaphoric things happening with it, and these things that represent. I think that's about textile in general, like material that's surface material. It has like um, this embedded coding that symbolize various forms of just human existence and human behavior and aspirations, and the way people look at certain types of material, the way that people have value on certain types of blends of material.
Hmm.
How even in garment, a type of zipper versus another type means something. It says something socially about the person who's wearing the jacket,
Yeah, I know.
like the type of buttons that you have on, and those types of things that were, and I do have this funny story, and I just want to tell this funny story. My mom tells me one time at her job, there was a coworker who had a similar dress as my mom. And my mom didn't take too kindly to that, because she didn't think that this woman's dress was like her dress. And the woman came up to her and she says, I have a dress just like that. And my mom said, no, you don't. And she said, yes, I do. I have a dress just like that. It has the dress and it has the vest. And my mother says to her, yes, but your vest doesn't come off.
You know,
That's what she said.
just like
She said, you do, or your vest. So your vest doesn't come
come
off.
off. It's like, and those are the things
Her vest was attached to the back of her dress. And so I guess it was the flap. And my mom's vest actually came off. So she was like, it's not the same.
It's
My
not.
vest comes off.
No. And
I
I
thought
grew
that
up.
was a funny story.
My mom worked for Lerner's Dress Shop. I don't know if anybody ever remembered that, but she would dress all the mannequins in the windows. So I would come into the store and I'd be able to see, and she would take a piece of fish wire and pull back one of the inside so you could see the inside of the coat. And so it looks like it was caught by the wind. And I feel like, those things, they're still kind of with me, sort of, and all those little touches that you had to do to make something that wasn't maybe
Yeah.
as chic as the store down the street, but you could get it if you kind of just put a flourish. And so I think that
Yeah.
we're into trying to do the flourish.
I love that. Put a flourish on that.
That's right.
Lisa and Janelle, did y'all's practice of collaboration get impacted by COVID at all? Anything to share
Quite a
on
bit. Janelle and I have had a bunch of plans over the past couple years or so that COVID interrupts in lots of different ways and keeps on. I mean, I think in all ways, I think all of us have been affected, and for the it's just in terms of how like our collaboration has been affected, it just keeps on we just have to just keep on adapting. But it is kind of, I was thinking about that today, how monumental and how in every shape and form and how every way, like just life is completely transformed by COVID, and collaboration included, and interacting and communicating included as well.
Well, that's when you really realize why it's so important. I mean, I feel like this whole exercise between me and Derrick, it became so important for me to make it happen. I mean, okay, before it was going to be, I was going to go back and see for we were going to have this physically. I was going to go to Brooklyn, and that just didn't happen. And so we had to kind of surmount that, that impediment, because it was an impediment in a certain kind of way. But that's when you realize, people, you think about husbands going off to war, or people going away and, leaving one country and going to the other, and you don't see your relatives for a really long time. How do you make it a conscious decision to not let that space be the defining factor in
Right.
keeping that connection. So I think that in a way, I think artists, we have something, we have that to demonstrate to the culture about the problem solving and how isolation is real, but we are more inventive than we think. You know, we have more resources that we can call upon. And when you are pressed and things are taken away and you have only three things instead of 300 things to pick from, then there becomes an elegance in how you make those three things work like 300 things. And I think people in the past have been called upon to do those things. And it's our time now that we're being called upon to surmount and make those three things work like 300 things. And one of the things, my mom, again, speaking about parents, I mean, we did a lot of embroidery, pillowcases, things on the back of the couch. And I learned, the satin stitch and the whatever. And every time I'd be kind of doing it, my mom would take the thing from me and she'd flip it over and look at the back.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you doing? She says, the back has to look as good as the front. She said, because that is what real embroidery is. So I kind of learned that the inside and the outside needed to kind of, so I think about Derrick's putting those, all the finish, that fine finish. I just kind of respond to that. You don't, and you do it no matter if it's silk or if it's cotton or if it's muslin. You handle it in the same way. So I was thinking about that when I saw your, the crocheting and the knitting, which my mom did too. You couldn't sit too long because she'd knit you right into the wall, and so I appreciated it.
Actually, in regards to COVID and your question, Chieko, that was one of Janelle and our question for you two, Derrick and Barbara, was like how you did your collaboration because you were on separate coasts and because of COVID. What kind of structures you used to have conversation, whether it was like, did you Zoom? Like what kind of structures did you use to have your conversations?
Well, we did all that. We Zoomed, but a lot of writing.
Yeah.
A lot of writing. And because Derrick is, he's a philosopher. So I would write this stuff down and I write him. I said, do you think this is what you said? And he would kind of make a few little.
She would say, this sounds like what you said. Did you say
this
that?
Is this what you said? Am I, and I would, and it was great for me because it's something about putting something down on a piece of paper that you realize if something has really been said rather than, because people can talk and things kind of go all up in the air. But when you write it down and you have it, then all of a sudden it's a thing. So I really enjoyed that part. I enjoyed the part, and then I would take the things we wrote, and then I'd send the parts that I thought were really relevant to the curators, to Nina and to Shami, and I said, here's one of our dialogues, and this is what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And so they could see what we've been talking about.
And actually, and I just noticed in the Q&A, there's a question about whether or not we could show any images.
Let's go there.
And because you just so beautifully brought up this idea of like visibility and seeing. So maybe maybe we should pull up Chieko some images of their show.
And just a reminder to folks, please feel free to put questions in our Q&A box. We'll have some images up and we'll kind of, Leslie will weave in questions as they come.
I love this.
These are images of packaged black. I hope everyone can pop over to the Henry and see it. Barbara, did you want to say anything about?
Well, I think that one of the things here, what you're looking at right here is one of Derrick's. It's actually it's a film, Derrick. And people are selling these boxes, and
it's a video of they're kind of like little tableaus happening. This is a documentation of a live performance where I invited a group of artists or just more creatives. They weren't all visual artists, but I asked them to be a part of my performance by pretending to sell, well, not pretending, they were selling a product that was listed on the box that I gave them. It was an empty box and it had a catchphrase on the box. And The only task they were given is to sell whatever is in the box and to use the catchphrase that I put on the box as the logo for the advertisement. So this is a still from all of the different people speaking at around the same time, because they were all mic'd up, and I had the voices mixed on a mixer, bringing people's voices in and out while they were pitching. They were all pitching their product at the same time, and this was a live performance at Pioneer Works, where it was originally shown, and Red Hook in Brooklyn.
And what was some of the names on those boxes? They're like
some was one was called Extra.
Extra. Yeah, you gotta get some extra.
yeah. One's called More for Less.
More for less, yeah, getting more for less.
Yeah, they had like phrases from like commercials and things that draw audience in, and these individuals here were performing the sales pitch for these products. So this is a video still of it, which was so beautifully done, shown for the first time with the frame of the television that I've used for collages as the portal for, the framing for the portal looking into the video, which I thought was really amazing for the space.
Proxima. You can do it.
Managing the chat and everything. Let's see.
Well, this is our main room here, and you see on one wall, you see Derrick's mannequin heads and some of my paper cuts and the big giant dress. And the dress is 9 feet tall, and it's made of Tyvek, and it's lit, and it's just about, imagining when you cover yourself and you're trying to, and Derrick talked about a little bit in our talk at the Henry about, that whole idea of just being audacious and being willing to step out. And so I wanted to make something that showed what sometimes you feel like on the inside when you step out with whatever you have on, and it's 9 feet. So sometimes inside you feel like, you know what, I got to project 9 feet of myself, even though I'm a 5'3" person. I'm going to step in and be that. And so this Cinderella redressed, which is actually the whole idea of the idea of that fairy tale sort of packaged in a way that I think that for young women from my life, trying to show up, fit in, hold the space, that they could feel that they owned. So that was part of what this was about. And in the nighttime, you see these are Derrick's, and in the nighttime, this is my theory. These heads go off and they go on top of my dress, and then they do things in the night when all the people leave the museum.
I can see that.
Because these are very large.
Yeah, these are from the Beauty World series, where these images are directly inspired by photographic images I've taken of storefront beauty shop windows and the wig heads that are in the window. So a lot of these works are painted photographs from those photographic images that I've painted on canvas and enlarged.
And this is the transformation room, so that once you are thinking about who you are, and I mean, Derrick's done the Patrick Kelly thing, and I decided I'd do a room where it's kind of like based on the dressing room. You step across, you have all your hopes, and for 1 minute, it's possible to be perfect. Things change once you hit reality, but I thought it would be a nice place to make this room that had to do with dreaming and what clothing and what changing things on the outside of your body does to your psyche, and the hope for how you fit into the space, which is to me a metaphor, especially for Black people. I tell people it's not like we're not trying to take over anything. We're just trying to put our flag down and say, this is our space too. And that's kind of what it is.
There was a question that came in. Derrick, would you be able to explain what is painted and what is photo on the head?
Well, everything except for the eyes and probably a small segment of the exposed photograph of the actual mannequin head is in the paint in the work, but the majority, 95% of the work is painted, but it's all painted over a photographic image taken of a mannequin head that was manipulated and with color tones, but the painting tones over it, the hair, the skin tones, the color blocking, everything but the nose is exposed. The eyes are the only thing that's consistent throughout the painting hasn't been painted over. That's from the original mannequin head photograph.
Okay. And we did get a question also in the chat about Lisa and Janelle's mother. So we can get to that after these next few images, and then maybe you all can share some images as well if you have them.
Yeah. And this is the room where Derrick and I are. It's actually, this light thing turns and there's music, and it's where the party happens. You know, after you get your clothes on, you go to the party. This is where it happens. You know, in the room where it happens, I guess. So that was one of the things, and that's one of the things we actually literally did together. So are there slides from Janelle's and Lisa?
Yeah, Janelle, do you want to share or should I?
Sure, I can share.
Okay. It's so beautiful to see those images and to see like the conversation, as you two were putting it before, of these shapes that echo back and forth between the paper cuts and the shadows and the collages. So this is a view in one of the main galleries of the Nordic Museum, where knit paintings are hung on the wall, flat against the wall, and then also hanging freely from this wooden kind of architectural armature that's in the middle of the room, that we designed so that you could see both sides of the textiles and walk kind of around and amidst the work, and to be able to see the work from different perspectives, see through it, and to have like a variety of vantage points.
And this is one of the works you were talking about in reference to this idea of translation from one media into the other. And so some of the works are paired with works on paper, where you can see this kind of direct relationship between a work on paper and a work being translated into a knit surface, which is then sometimes stretched around stretcher bars to really reference this idea of a painting. The work on the wall kind of goes chronologically, I feel like, in terms of like our investigation and our experiments in how this work evolved and came to be. And I think, as Chieko mentioned, one of the works in the show that's included, one of the textiles in the show that's included, is a rag rug that our mother's mother wove. And then there's also a knit kind of translation of that rag rug also included in the show. And then other works in the show also have these other kinds of interventions of different kind of textile mark making. And so some of the works also have pieces that are created separately. There might be weaving and knit surfaces, or parts that are embroidered onto a piece, or shaped canvases. There's all these kinds of different evolutions and ideas that have taken place in this series of work that we've been working on with our mom. And what you were saying, Barbara, really resonates so much in terms of like this, your mom telling you to look at the back to see to kind of measure your handiwork and kind of learn from what also you can't quite tell on the front. And so I think a lot of the conversations that we've had with our mom have been around this idea of being a maker and valuing that work, and also looking at things differently. And so one of the things we loved so much about the knitworks was the ability to see the backside, because it reveals so much about the hand that made it, and it reveals so much about the process. And so these armatures that we created to show the work was really about looking at them from all sides and kind of honoring that, both what you saw right in front of you, what was the front, but also like really loving the ability to access that information on the back.
Yeah, and one of the questions in the chat was asking where Bodhild lives, and she's based in Queens, New York, and she now travels, very restricted because of COVID, but will sometimes drive up to Massachusetts to chill with me or to see her there's 4 of us. She has 4 daughters in total. And so she'll drive down the Eastern Seaboard and see the other 2. And we hope that she and Janelle get to see each other soon. And Janelle and I are very novice knitters and crocheters and embroiderers. Like we're weavers. We're still very weavers. We're like very much learning and catching up. And so one of the beauties of working with our mom is like continuing to learn from her and kind of to sit down and integrate all of our attempts in the same kind of object, and to just keep that continuum of skill sharing.
Okay. Well, I think that, in just in keeping in line with what you're saying, I think that part of what I've gotten from this collaboration with Derrick is, it's pushed me to think, it's pushed me to be out of my comfort zone, not so far out that I'm beyond my skill set, but in a place where I am reaching across time, I'm reaching across sort of ideas. And it was really something that ignited me. So if Derrick has said I really pushed myself, because for me to have someone allow that kind of handshake across time and space, it's an opportunity. It's just a gift. And so when you get a gift like that, you want to respond in kind. And so it's made me a better person, crazy, but better.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm happy to be on the panel with everyone here, and I love looking at both Janelle and Lisa's work and having a conversation with everyone. Chieko, the moderator, thank you so much. Leslie, again, the pleasure. This is, collaboration is one thing that's so great. It just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you.
I want to thank Derrick, Barbara, Janelle, and Lisa for this really wonderful conversation, transporting us to be situated alongside you and have a better understanding of your working, your methods and your process. Thank you, Chieko, for guiding this conversation, and also hearty thanks to our colleagues at the Henry Art Gallery for collaborating with us on this program. I want to encourage everyone who's tuned in to see the exhibitions. Packaged Black, Derrick Adams and Earl Thomas is on view at the Henry Art Gallery until May 1st, and Mother Tongues, Bodhild and Las Hermanas Iglesias closes at the end of January. We hope to see you in the galleries. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.
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 Chaucito.